for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing, Fade to Black? Everything good? Everything's good around here. Today is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. Yeah, that's right. That's from the movie Friday. I stole it. Chris Tucker. Yeah. You ain't got no job. You ain't got nothing to do. Let's do this, man. All right. Let's do it. Where am I? Tonight, Trey Hudson's on the show. This week on Fade to Black, it's a short week this week because it's Halloween. Last night, Les Velez was here, and another amazing conversation with Les talking about alien and ET abductions. Tonight, Trey Hudson is back with us. As promised, his documentaries are out. We are going to be talking about them and the rest of the world of high strangeness tonight with the one and only Trey Hudson. Tomorrow night, John Carruth is here. What is a poltergeist? Yeah, we need that just in time for Halloween because Thursday we are off air. I am going to be at a friend's Halloween party, and it's going to be great. And yeah, so I'm taking the night off. Yeah. All right. I do have 7 events coming up in 2026 in combination with everything else that I do around here. It's a busy schedule, but we squeeze it all in. All right. Now, come and hang out with me in 2026. You can do it at the Conscious Life Expo, February 20th through the 23rd at the LAX Hilton. I was talking to, maybe later I'll give up his name. But I was talking to a rock star friend of mine today, and he's coming to the Conscious Life Expo. And I'm so excited about this, flying in from out of town and got all the arrangements made. And I'm really looking forward to embarrassing him and pulling up on stage at some point. And that is February 20th through the 23rd at the LAX Hilton. After that, the Sedona Ascension Retreat, March 20th through the 22nd, 2026 in Sedona, Arizona. After that, the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through the 3rd in Delavan, Wisconsin at Delavan Lake. After that, it's Contact in the Desert, May 28th through June 1st, 2026. Tickets on sale next month on Thanksgiving Day. Then I head south to Peru with Brian Forrester for the Inca Celebration of the Sun, June 23rd through July 1st. After that, I go over to Scotland for the Monty Python Tour of Scotland. That is August 1st through the 9th. Then I'm back to Peru and Easter Island, and that's going down November 2026 with Brian Forrester. And you can do all of that that you need to do with the links below and go and check out the schedules and stuff. I will be going back to Egypt in 2027 with Sarah Breskman-Cosme for the total eclipse. That's right. Totality is happening over the city of Luxor, and we will be there, and it is going to be amazing. So come and join us for that. That's good. That is a serious once-in-a-lifetime thing. All right? So with that, let's just get started. Trey Hudson is here tonight. He's got a short documentary that is out. It's called The Helm and Lens. We're going to be talking about that. He's got the new Meadow Project documentary out. We're going to talk about that. And not only the new film, The Meadow Project, and that mini documentary, but we're going to talk about how all of this ties into his books, all of the research he's doing at the Meadow, and which is, like many locations in the United States, it's a hotspot for unexplained phenomena. He's the director of the Anomalous Studies and Observation Group, ASOG, which investigates high strangeness phenomena through a multidisciplinary, experiencer-centered approach with a background in psychology and anthropology from the University of West Georgia. He also served, as a U.S. Army military intelligence officer, which means I can't tell a fib on the show tonight because he will know. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only Trey Hudson. He's right there. Trey, so Trey, I have so much respect for you, but I'm just going to let everybody know.
Hey, don't believe everything you hear.
I'm just going to let everybody know. Yeah. Trey and I, before the show, we're discussing how to cheat on a polygraph. and this is the thing. You are, when former intelligence officer, and what that entails is none of my business. I'll try to get it out of you at some point. I have tried, and you've put up a pretty good wall. But have you ever issued a polygraph?
No, I never was trained.
Yeah, somebody else did it.
Yeah. They have your various agencies have polygraphers, which those are not the guys that make smutty 8mm movies. That's a pornographer. But these are polygraphers,
right?
That's a joke. You can't.
Yeah, that was good.
Jimmy. No, that's fine. Okay.
Your intelligence, man. See, you're trying to get inside of my head.
Yeah. No.
And you're using it with sex and pornography like you intelligence officers do.
Hey, the intelligence is the second oldest profession. And the second oldest profession oftentimes uses the first oldest profession. And it's actually called in the intel business called the honey trap. And that is, there have been many, many, many guys and gals, just absolutely rolled.
Just can't say no. They can't say no. Probably. And when that comes up in a movie, the honey pot, the honey trap, and you see that come up, you see it as the plot twist. You see this coming as a viewer, right? And then you step back, and it could be a true story, right? You're watching it is a true documentary, and you see this part come up, and you go, "Didn't he know?" Well, no, he didn't. Otherwise, people get blinded by that.
Yeah.
And money, whatever, the art of the deal, you're going to do something, bank robbery. Didn't you know that they were undercover? No, obviously I didn't, or I wouldn't have done it. And it's the same thing with the honey trap, isn't it?
It is. I mean, that's something that, at the end of my career, something that was becoming really problematic is virtual honey traps. When I would give briefings, I'd say, guys, look, I'd look out in the audience as, I said, none of you are Brad Pitt. So if you're getting a friend request, on Facebook or whatever social media from some smoking hot Russian babe, it's probably really a guy working for Russian intelligence named Igor with hair coming out of the collar of his shirt on his back. Okay. You're being catfished. That's, the oldest trick in the book. And we actually had a few cases where, these guys would get caught in that. We would bring them in. I'd sit there in front of them, and I'd have two very, stern looking special agents. And we'd say, okay, no more, no more, online friendships with, foreign nationals. And then a year later, the same guy's back in front of us. And it's like, come on, dude. We warned you, we told you what would happen. And, here we are again. So yeah, it's the oldest primal drive, the little reptilian part of our brain, the medulla oblongata, is driving that need to reproduce. And foreign intelligence agencies absolutely take advantage of that.
They do.
So you're buying me a drink later?
Yeah, no. I know. Exactly. Listen, I just like everybody else. I'm not, everybody has this happen all day long, where you'll get PMs, you'll get emails, you'll get text, you'll get WhatsApp, or whatever it is, right? You get these things, and they're coming in all the time. Hey, what's going on? How you doing? What are you doing? And it's block. I've never responded, but people do.
Oh yeah.
people do. I mean, I was reading this article, and then we'll move on. I'm only interested in this because of your background, and people need to hear this. From somebody like you, where it doesn't get talked that much, and people that get burned like that,
Yeah.
they don't go out and brag about it. They don't go out and tell their friends that they got catfish, they got burned, they sent somebody $5,000. They sent out some Bitcoin today, whatever it is, their new girlfriend that lives in wherever needs money because her mom is in the hospital,
Right.
and she needs to fly to, and and why criminals do it, because people,
because it works. It works.
It's got to be a numbers game too, as well. They're sending out, hundreds of thousands of those kinds of messages, probably on the hour.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not kidding. And it only takes a few, you only need that one person to click. It's fascinating to me. But staying on this as an, not as a catfish thing, but maybe 3-eye atlas is a catfish. What do you think is going on with 3-eye atlas? We're getting ready from tomorrow and forward to have some pretty good observation capabilities on 3-eye atlas. Can we count on the government to tell us the truth about what this object is, if it's a comet or not?
Yeah, I think it's a comet. I mean, it has all the signatures of a comet. The scientists I've talked to, are pretty convinced it's a comet. It's so big and it's being observed by so many people, extra governmental. You have tons of private astronomers. My brother-in-law is a very accomplished amateur astrophotographer. So there's a lot of amateurs out there watching this thing. Mm-hmm. So if it started doing anything really hinky, like, going in a strange trajectory or something, or if it started looking at the spectral analysis of, the gases coming off of it, it started looking weird, that would be really hard to cover up because you just have so many eyes on it. But I think it's a comet. I remember Hale Bopp and the Heaven's Gate people, and the craft, cruising along in the tail of Hale Bopp. And then I remember, the last scare with, I can't even remember the name of the thing. It was a very odd name, but, people worried about that being of it is of extraterrestrial origin, obviously. But it being under some sort of intelligent control. So I think this is probably going to be a comet. I saw.
Oh, are you talking about Oumuamua? Oumuamua.
Well, I'll call it Umaguma after the Pink Floyd album.
Umaguma's fine. Yeah, I called it Umaguma for about 2 months.
Well, Gesundheit.
Yeah, right.
But I think it's a comet.
But you only think it's a comet based on what you've been told, though.
Well, yeah, based on what I've been told. But you have, it's one of those things. It would be like if you had a 200-foot alien land in the middle of the World Series. People are going to notice that, and that's going to be hard to cover up because you have.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That's the difference this time around. It's a big object, and everybody's looking at it. And amateur astronomers are pretty damn good.
They're excellent.
Every asteroid that comes close to Earth, it's the amateurs that discover it. It's not, it's not the University of Hawaii, right? With their it's some guy or gal, that's got a really cool setup at their house, and they're looking up into the stars every night. And that's where last week we had a flyby 60,000 miles from Earth, right? 50 feet, 57-foot asteroid.
Yep.
Discovered on October 13th. It passed Earth on October 15th.
Yeah, you have to kind of wonder, is one going to sneak by and cause all kind of unpleasantness here on Earth? Hopefully it doesn't. But
Well, with Oumuamua, what was trippy about that, and I'm just based on Avi Loeb's book, Extraterrestrial,
Right.
I think that was not natural, because it turned and it sped up and it slowed down and it sped up again
Mm-hmm.
without any gravitational effects on it. That's pretty bizarre.
Yeah,
And
that is odd.
that's a tough one to explain away. We never got any clear shots of it. By the time we knew what was going on, it was gone. We only had 11 days, and that was it. 11 days, and it's gone. And the data that we've collected is all the data we will ever collect.
Ever have, right.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone. So if this comet or this object, whatever it is, which seems to be metallic in nature, a lot of metal coming off of this thing, aluminum, nickel, iron. And so just based on that, I find it strange. But if it does anything crazy, this is one of the points that Avi Loeb brings up. Let me run this past you.
Mm-hmm.
It is on its trajectory that it is doing without any gravity assist from the sun. Okay.
Yeah.
And it is in a heliocentric orbit, which
Mm-hmm.
means it has nothing to do with the sun or our solar system. It's doing its own thing. So that feels strange to me. It just feels strange. And if that's the case, if that is the case, then it's a comet whose origins would have to be, if it wasn't developed here in the Oort cloud, which they're saying it wasn't, then that means it came from somewhere else. And the next closest thing at that speed is a long ways away. So
Right,
they
right.
backtracked it and they traced it back to the origins of the WOW signal. Now,
You know-
that feels a little weird to me.
And you did hit on something that we have to be really, really careful of. This even ties into my own research, is we have a set of optics on how we think things look that we're familiar with. And based on that experience, we project that on how unknown things should look. Now, a alien, and that's such a thrown around word, but a spacecraft or vessel from somewhere, some other intelligence, we think that it's supposed to look like a sphere or an orb or a cube or whatever. And we think that it's supposed to behave in a certain way. It's supposed to, exhibit these kind of, ballistic patterns. It's supposed to, be made of this kind of material under spectral analysis. It's supposed to show these kind of signatures. And, if we ever encounter something that is truly from the others, it might be so frigging bizarre and so strange that we won't ever recognize it for what it is. That's like an ant doesn't recognize a Coca-Cola can as a Coca-Cola can. It's just something pretty friggin' weird, in its world. And, it might not even say that Coca-Cola can is, connected to some sort of higher intelligence, i.e. humans, but I know some people that are not as bright as an ant, but that's another story. But, so that's, we're the ants in this case, and it might be something that's so strange and unusual, we might not recognize it for what it truly is, which may be something, from another, other intelligence.
Yeah, and that's the problem with science right there. That's the problem with science and cosmology in general. We base everything on our knowledge base.
Yes.
And so our, the current laws of physics, the known laws of everything has just got to fit right into this narrow thing for them. And instead of the opposite should occur. If we're dealing with something that came from out there to here, it is way beyond us. So we need to expect anything. Let your imagination go. This is your opportunity to do that. Don't narrow and go, oh, it has to be they're forcing it into being a comet. right? They force it into being a rock. They force it into being whatever it is that fits our knowledge base and how we know things. It shouldn't be that way, should it?
Yeah, we need to be careful how we use our neurolinguistics. Is, if you notice, I said it appears to be a comet. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm not there standing on it looking at it. So far, the indicators show that it most likely is A, B, or C. But you hit on it, spot on. Like before, I believe it was Van Hook that developed the first simple lenses that made the first microscope. Okay, so by using the logic of science, bacteria didn't exist before then because we couldn't see them, so they didn't exist. The mimosa theory of the spreading of disease, which is vaporous things in the air, that was truth until we discovered microbes and germs and et cetera, et cetera. We are blinded by our own knowledge, our own arrogance, our own big-headedness.
Yeah, it's true though. If you go out and you're with your daughter and you're making sandcastles at the beach, and you take the sand bucket and you go out into the ocean and you scoop up the water, and there's no sharks in the bucket, so there's no sharks in the ocean.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same.
Or there's no life in that water because
no
the
life
life
in
is
the
so
water
small because you can't see it.
Therefore, there's nothing. It's just like that argument. We haven't discovered anything. We haven't seen any. What do you?
Maybe you have, and you just don't have a way to detect it.
It's like the craziest thought. Literally, if you scoop up some water and there's nothing in it, then therefore there's nothing that lives in water. That is just dumb.
It's stupid.
It's just dumb.
Well, and it's anti-scientific. I mean, that kind of attitude. It's anti-science. So it always tickles me when I hear people, there's not, we're the apex, intelligence in the universe. Well, why? Well, because nobody's ever made contact. Well, do you know if they've made contact? If I'm on my ham radio beaming a signal to, a tribe in the Amazon, that doesn't mean I don't exist because they can't receive the signal. That just means they can't receive the signal.
The time scale that extraterrestrial life would have to be in would have to match ours.
Yes.
Right? If it's off just a little bit, they could be not only invisible, but the signals that they are sending are just noise to us. Or not accessible at all. If they're stretched out past or compress, to what we would normally expect a carrier signal with video, TV, radio, whatever it may be, laser, it doesn't matter. But the information could be stretched and could just be nothing to us, and there is nothing to observe, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing there. And to say one last point, and then we'll move on to the other high strangeness of the night, is that it's a numbers game for astrophysicists and astronomers. It's a numbers game, and they know now they're getting a better grip on the size of everything. We didn't understand just 30 years ago. We had a different understanding of what the universe is and exoplanets and everything else. And the count that we have today of the amount of galaxies and the amount of stars and planets that are in individual galaxies in the observable universe is a number that is so big we don't understand it. It's that big. It's like it's a crazy big number. So it's a numbers game to them, and they know that there's too much out there, so there's got to be life everywhere.
Yeah.
But we don't have any evidence of them being here. And I'm like, what? Who's saying that? Who's saying that? The 2,000 astrophysicists on this planet? There's not that many, right? How many astronomers, professional astronomers are on this planet? 10,000. It's not that big of a number.
Yeah.
What about the millions and millions and millions of witnesses to this? They are outnumbered by that, and they need to flip it around and understand that anything is possible, and we glow in the dark. We should be of interest out there, just like we are looking for interesting things. Well, so are they, and leave it at that. Why would you just dismiss? You can't dismiss it.
Well, and I think what we have to do is, I think the smart way is look at indicators and signatures, maybe not necessarily proof of their presence, but the detritus of their movement through our existence. Their tracks, their trails, things like that. Their litter, their cosmic litter they leave behind them, and that might, be a way of starting to figure out exactly what's going on. But you did an excellent segue on what the subject of tonight's discussion is, because they're here, and they're here in ways that people do not realize. And the stuff we're going to talk about tonight may disturb some people.
Well, is it because you combine an open mind with your intelligence background to get to these answers?
Yeah, I think so. I try to keep an open mind, and I'm not as open-minded as I like to think I am. I mean, nobody is, but I am not a scientist. I'm an analyst, and I analyze the data. And when I get a piece of data, I corroborate that with hopefully independent sources. And when it starts pointing towards a conclusion, I say the indicators point to A, B, or C. When we were studying this back during the Cold War, we would get a radiation signature that matches a piece of Soviet equipment, like a ZSU 23-4 anti-aircraft system, uses a particular type of radar unit with a particular radiation signature. And we would pick that up with our equipment. We'd say, okay, that's where we think there's this particular piece of Soviet equipment. And doctrinally, that Soviet piece of equipment is right on the edge of a one motorized rifle regiment and another. So we start saying, okay, so now we think that that's the edge of these two regiments, so we can go ahead and fix that enemy force. We know that a regiment, motorized rifle regiment, is made of so many tanks, so many BTRs, et cetera, armored personnel carriers. And we can start drawing all of this data and painting a picture of the battlefield. It's called IPB, intelligence preparation of the battlefield, through the interception of one radiation signature. And so that's where an analyst comes in. Now, could I say with scientific certainty that I can tell you that, the 17th Soviet Guards motorized rifle regiment is right there? No, I can't say with certainty, but I could say indicators point to it, and a good tactician would act on that.
Fascinating. Your films are out.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about the Meadow Project first, right. And then what is going to be incredibly interesting is the surprise with your new short, The Helm and the Lens, and we'll circle back to that.
Right.
Let's talk about the Meadow Project.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a bad toe fungus. I've been here so many times, and you just can't get rid of me with that topical ointment. So here I am again. The Meadow Project is something we've been working on since 2016, and it is an area of extreme high strangeness, located somewhere in the America Southland. And it's generated 2 books. We have been researching this area, like I said, for the past 9 years. And, some of our findings are quite breathtaking. And the methodology that we started on is very different from the methodology we ended up with. Probably our most amazing thing was a cube-like, and I'm going to use the term portal, and people will see this in the film, is we dispatched teams to it, and they disappeared, from our thermals, completely gone, completely obliterated. We did, multiple times trying to recreate that. We even, in the film, people even see a recreation we did with both live camera and thermal simultaneously tracking our team as we try to recreate the loss of the heat signatures of our team.
Can we stay right there for a second? People
Mhm.
are fascinated with this, and
Yeah.
so am I. Was the cube visible? I know it's a dark
Yeah.
field,
Yeah.
was the cube visible?
Yeah. No, it was not. It was not. It was dark. And what we have found that thermals, high-end thermal units from ATN or FLIR or whatever company you want, really seem to work well. And so the cube actually, and I completely forgot about this, and this is in the film during the interview section, is one of my team members. We were on a team up on top of a ridge, and he was looking down into the meadow with his thermal, and he said, "Trey, that's really weird." He goes, "There's a utility box down there, like the kind of boxes you see on the side of the road that hold fiber optics and telecoms and stuff like that, the big green boxes." And he said, "I have never noticed that before." He said, "That's weird. We've been all over that area." And so I bring my thermal up and I'm like, "Daryl, those are deer." And he goes, "What are you talking about? It was a cube down there, a box." And he brings his thermal up and now he sees the heat signature of deer. And he goes, that's really weird. And so, once again, we try to rationalize, never overestimate a human being's ability to rationalize the unusual or the strange. So it's like, oh, well, I must have imagined that, and unbeknownst to us is while we were seeing that from our vantage point, our teams down in the meadow proper were actually seeing these cubes appear on their thermals and disappear and then reappear in other areas. It was like jumping around the meadow. And we also saw some heat signatures of small beings that were not deer. They were started off as a small heat signature, got big, got small, got big, and then split into two separate heat signatures. And those strange creatures actually show up later while we're filming the individuals going into the remnants of that cube-like thermal anomaly. There's small beings that are actually watching us from a small group of trees that did not correspond with any location of our known team members. And so it's almost like we were observing, but we were actually the subject that was being observed.
Now, that's a great point. If it's like the tree falling in the woods, right? If you guys weren't there, would they have been there?
Well, that's an excellent question. Is were we the subject of an experiment? Could be. It could be. We think that we were able to establish contact, two-way communication using a tool from the paranormal world called the Estes protocol. That's in the film too, that session. And, just about everybody who has seen the video of that Estes protocol agrees that it does appear that there is two-way communication going on between myself and the individual I had acting as the receiver using the Estes method. So, that's the trick, is when does the lab rat start talking to the scientist?
Mm-hmm.
Are we the lab rat now starting to, interact with the scientist? And is the scientist, i.e. the others, actually interested enough to hold a two-way conversation? There for a moment they were, and then near the end of the conversation, they started to become a little agitated when I started questioning, specific phenomenologies, with these cubes or portals, electromagnetic fields, gravitational energy, things like that. Became very agitated and didn't want to talk to us anymore, and actually told us to leave.
In all of your years out there investigating, you've got a lot of sensor stuff. You've got a lot of equipment and video too, as well, with you and imaging. Did you guys ever observe anything in the sky?
Yeah, we've seen a couple of UFOs, and nobody get hung up on what term I use, UFO, UAP. It's I know some people get real emotional about that, but I'll just say UFOs. We have seen some UFOs. I do have a really good video of a set of UFOs that I have not been able to figure out what they are. And so I sent them over to Mark D'Antonio with MUFON. And so Mark's been looking at them. He's a friend of mine. and trying to figure out exactly what I captured on video, because I did all the, the MUFON stuff, and I couldn't figure it out. So, we have that. And this area is also very well known. The general area, geographical area, is well known for UFOs. It's also well known for Bigfoot. We have a Bigfoot on video, on thermal. But the weird thing is, it's a large hulking figure, big head sitting on big block shoulders, that's colder than the ambient temperature. Not hotter, colder. And we have seen that in other places we've researched, where you'll have.
How do you explain that?
This is the indicator to me, is that perhaps Sasquatch, or what people call Sasquatch, is not necessarily always a physical being. That sometimes
he could have just gotten out of a swimming pool.
He could have. It's shrinkage. It's shrinkage, Jerry. It's shrinkage.
Yeah. Might have. I'm just thinking, what would cool down? Maybe a creek nearby.
Well, it could be. It could be. But the interesting thing is every time you hear the traditional folkloric ghost stories, or haunt stories, what's one of the things that seems to be present in every story? The room
got colder.
Here.
Yep.
And it seems like that is when I talked about indicators or signatures, that seems to be a thermal signature or precursor of high strangeness. So what if these things, for whatever reason, when they're winking in and out of, their dimension into our dimension, if they appear cooler than the surroundings initially? And like I said, there was another place in another state that we were doing some research and caught some pretty cool video of what appeared to be a Sasquatch type creature moving through the forest, and it was colder once again than the ambient temperature. And I actually went back and looked at some footage by anthropologists who were studying baboon populations in the jungle, and they were using a UAV equipped with thermal. And so I was like, okay, how does a primate present itself when looked at through a high-end thermal? And even with a primate that's very hairy, the hands and the face is brilliant, very hot compared to the surrounding temperature. But the thing that we caught, not only at the Meadow, but this other location where it was a universal one temperature, it was a universal gray, just a few degrees colder than the ambient temperature.
What scares stuff like that? The sound of a chambered weapon. I swear to God, man, works every time. Works every time. I've never told this story. I'll make it brief. Man, 6 months ago, I'm in bed. House is dark, and man, I got stuff going on. I can hear things on the, and there's noise, and I'm not getting freaked out, but my ghost is like active on this particular night. I swear to God, man. I pull something out from under my bed and I chamber it. And I laid it on the bed next to me. Silence. It was crazy. I was like, all right. So haven't had to use it again, but it worked. It was the only way I could calm down. I was like,
yeah. Like maybe I can do something if it gets hairy. I've got.
Yep.
That is one thing. I mean, we can have all kinds of really sexy stuff, where I live. And we are equipped because, we've in this area, there's a murderous death cult, that had murdered some people, in this area. So, we tend to protect ourselves, or want to protect ourselves, but we've never had to draw down on anything. But quite frankly, I don't know what it would do. If it's something that's winking,
it's for us. It's for us. It has nothing to do. Look, I have next to my bed on my nightstand, I have a black 6D mag light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now it's a great flashlight, but that's not what it's built for.
Yeah.
Right. It's built to change somebody's attitude. That's what that's built for. And I have a couple of aluminum bats, behind doors and stuff. It's just, I live alone,
Yeah.
That's not going to do anything with a ghost.
No.
But it's there, right? It's there. I think about that all the time. What about Bigfoot in a situation like that? I hear squatchers talk about, never go squatching without your sidearm. And I think Sasquatch would know.
I don't know. I hear that, I hear people say the same thing. It's like, oh, if you go out there with a negative intention, and you're armed and, all of that. And I respect their opinion. Based on, the years of doing stuff, is a firearm to me is a tool. It's just like, my knife or, my handy talkie. It's a tool. And if I don't need that tool, it's going to stay in its toolbox, i.e. the holster. And I'm not even going to think about it. So I don't go out.
You have mountain lions and bears.
Yeah, we do. We, in this area, we do have mountain lions and bears and, big feral hogs, with razor sharp tusks and all of that. So, I mean, it's a tool. And I think that people that go out and use a firearm or a pointy stick or their samurai sword as, what one of my firearms instructors called a ballistic binky, their little pacifier in their mouth to make them feel better, to make them feel safer. I think that intent is projected. I'm fearful, but I've got my ballistic pacifier in my holster. So I feel better now because I'm, I've got it with me. But, those of us that have, basically look at firearms as weapons or knives as weapons or as tools, rather, not as weapons, look at them as tools, misspoke. I don't think that intent is there. So I think that, these entities, I do think going in with the right attitude does help. I don't believe in provoking. I think that's you're just being a butthole. So why go out there and be a butthole? Go out there and be friendly.
Right.
And,
right.
So, that's kind of the way we look at it. But, I do have a 44 Magnum I take out there with me and, other sundry toys and stuff.
Well, that's the whole point with the Meadow Project. Let me ask you. That's the whole point of the Meadow Project is it is remote. How close? I don't want you to give anything away, but how close by is like help?
It's not. It's not. In the film, we had 3 researchers. They're from, you might know them, Joel Thomas, Tony Merkel, and Ward Heine were the researchers that came out. And one of the things that Tony talks about, he says, this is the most remote place we have ever been. He said it is so, in the film, he says it's so remote that it was miles and miles and miles and miles of dirt and gravel roads with no cell reception. So we've actually had to medevac people out of the meadow that have had strange medical problems. And it's so remote, we can't contact 911. There is no 911. So, what we do is whenever I issue an operations order, I've got the latitude and longitude to the closest heliport or helispot rather, for air evac. And also the latitude and longitudes and addresses of the closest hospitals. Because, what we had to do with this individual is we had to literally, one of our medics packaged him up and took him by POV, privately owned vehicle, to the ER because, we wouldn't be able to contact anybody. Now we can, because there is a very high mountain in this region, I'm talking like 40 miles away, that we can't hit it with a 5-watt ham radio. We can't hit the repeater with our radios. And so we could call a mayday over ham radio network and hopefully somebody would be monitoring, that frequency and could relay a, latitude and longitude, to responders. But it's, it's a lot quicker for us to package somebody up, put them in a vehicle. Like I said, we have medics on the team, package them up, get a driver and a medic and try to get to an area where we get reception and maybe either meet emergency responders or take them on to the hospital.
Are there other, I mean, there's some obvious things, but are there other hot spots in the United States like the Meadow that people don't know about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're common. I think they're a whole lot more common than people think. If folks really start digging into researching, and that's one of the things I enjoy doing. Is I'm a research geek and a map geek. Is I start looking at, okay, what areas have like a lot of UFO sightings, and you can go to MUFON or the National UFO Reporting Center, and plot these things. Okay, what areas have like a buttload of Bigfoot sightings? Okay, you go to BFRO, you can plot those. Okay, what areas have a lot of really cool ghost folklore? Okay, so now you're starting to see these little concentrations. And, odds are that's probably an area that the locals or historically has been called a haunted area or an area with haints, depending on what part of the country you are. Or if you're in the American West, it's an area that the Native Americans have always held as either sacred or cursed. And these areas most likely are a spot of extreme high strangeness. And they're out there just waiting for people to research and investigate. But I do have to warn people, is this type of research is not for the faint of heart. It can be dangerous psychologically, it can be dangerous metaphysically, and it can be dangerous, health-wise. People, of the 4 people that went into the remnants of that cube and disappeared off the thermal, only 2 of them are left alive. Half of them are
Yeah,
dead.
that's crazy. That's
You know.
insane. What tipped you off? How were you tipped off to the Meadow?
The Meadow is what tipped me off is it's an area that was folklorically known as a haunted area. This region, the South is very, very dialed into the ghost and things like that. It's part of our culture. And, that comes a lot from the Celtic, the Scots-Irish culture, coming over to America's Southland and bringing, that culture, with them. So, there's a lot of ghost stories, a lot of, areas about, haunted roads and cemeteries and all of this. So that's really what got me into it. Is I started off as a ghost guy, and so I started looking into it, and I found out that, wow, there's like a lot of MUFON reports in this area, like a lot. And then I started digging into Bigfoot, and I'm like, wait, now forget that Pacific Northwest stuff. There's like a lot of Bigfoot reports in this area, and it's actually kind of known as a Bigfooty kind of area. And we just happened to discover an area that was so convenient logistically, because it was a big open field in this region that was already, really kind of a hot spot. This big open field was an area where we could put multiple teams out because it was about an 8-acre meadow. We could put teams up on top of a high ridge. We had a big view of the sky. We could do track traps of anything moving across this meadow. If it was like a creature, we could track it. And it was just logistically a good place to be. It made sense. And we hit pay dirt, first time out.
Is there anything historically tied to the area? Indian battle of anything sacred or anything else?
Yeah, there's a lot of back in the years ago, there were a lot of conflicts, not only between the various tribes, but also between white settlers as they moved through this region. And I'm not going to go into detail because it would give away kind of what area this is in, but there were a lot of very famous battles with very famous American historical figures and stuff in this region. And so it's an area that is looked at as strife. There's a lot of strife in this area. And also in this area, there's a lot of forgotten communities. You'll go and you'll find cemeteries in the middle of the woods. You'll find foundations of homes and communities, out in the middle of nowhere. So it's an area that's been continuously populated and that's been forgotten. It's been pushed to the side story of history. And it's there for people to really look at, if they want to dig into it. And I think that all of that energy, trapped, I don't know if people are kind of drawn to this area because it has a strange energy, or if, they just happen to have these communities in this area. But, wherever you have people, you're going to have the folklore get generated. And some of that folklore is based on fact, i.e. ghost folklore. You'll read about old newspaper accounts of wild men, being chased by the sheriff's posse, those are, kind of a proto Bigfoot type story. And, the stuff's out there. People just need to, go back and start looking through their, their historical archives in their local communities and finding it.
Do you have a more common visitor to the Meadow? Do you have repeat performances?
Yeah. It's kind of, we call it the trifecta of high strangeness. If you go out to the Meadow, and you have an open invitation, that, is you're going to see orbs, you're going to hear disembodied voices, and you're going to see shadow people. Those that's pretty common.
It scares the crap out of me, man. You're right. It's not for the faint of heart.
No, I mean it's funny because I'll tell people, oh yeah, that's shadow people. I mean, yeah, we see them all the time. Oh, orbs, yeah. Oh wait, here come the disembodied voices. Do you hear them singing? It's like, yeah, what is that? Yeah, those are strange mountain voices. Singing. Literally out in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, that's pretty common.
We were in Peru like 6 months ago, and we're in this cave in the Sacred Valley, and it's insane what this is. Anyway, so we're up there and we're doing this little ceremony. We've got a shaman with a drum, and he's singing in the native tongue and stuff, and so when he comes out, he does it for about 10 minutes. And we're all sitting there. It's like 20 of us in this cave. And the back half of the cave is bricked up.
Mm-hmm.
No access to the back of the cave, right? It's just the front. And we're all sitting there. And Trey, as I live and breathe, he stops the drums. And from behind the brick wall, children's laughter.
Yeah.
Right. And like kids playing in a park on a merry-go-round, little kids, that laughter, that thing. And my eyes pop open and I'm looking, and somebody goes, "Did you guys hear kids laughing?" I go, "You heard what?" It was right. What? And it's like, and when we talk about disembodied voices, it's one thing to hear somebody discuss it and say what they've heard and how this goes down. It's a whole nother experience to hear it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unnerving. And the weird thing is they're really hard to record, which is the crazy thing. I mean, we've been out there, and there's another film director friend of mine that was out there on a visit, and he and I were sitting there, and the voices were so loud it was hard to hold a conversation, he and I. But they don't seem to record. It's really weird. We can't seem to pick them up on digital recording equipment. It's just one of those weird things.
Can you share that with what the first time for me? It really messed with my head. The first time you heard a disembodied voice, what changed in you?
It's actually the first disembodied voice I heard was as a ghost guy, and I mean, I've heard EVPs, I've heard disembodied voices, I've heard disembodied footsteps. And I guess what it does is it's very humbling because, as human beings, I guess, we have that ego drive to think that we're it. We're human beings. We're the apex predator on planet Earth. We're all that there is. And then you have to kind of take a deep breath and say, there's something else out there. And you can look at that two ways. That's an existential crossroads. Is you can say, there's something else out there, and there's something else beyond, this Euclidean world, this world of matter. And either that can scare the hell out of you, or you can take comfort in that. I take comfort in that, because it lines up with my belief system. I found it very encouraging that there's something else beyond this three-dimensional world.
When a skeptic says Nah, it was just blah. No,
Yeah.
no, you were not there. You did not hear it. It's like a skeptic trying to convince you that the car that you saw drive by was red and not yellow. It's like, no, no, dude, it was yellow. I know what I saw. No, it was red. And let me tell you
Oh,
why.
yeah.
No, stop. And it's the same thing with some of this unexplained phenomena. We may not know what it is or what's causing it. I think we're getting a better understanding of that. But you can't dismiss the experience.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you know what I mean? That's what I tell people all the time. It's my eyes that I believe. It's my ears that I trust when it comes to this. The firsthand experience, video, fun, documentaries, love them. You know, we need to share the knowledge and everything. It's a whole other thing to experience it in the first person.
And that is, yeah, and you hit on it when you did the introduction. Is we look at things from two perspectives. We look at it from the empirical. You know, if we can capture data, that's cool. If I can capture data on my Geiger counter, hey, groovy, I'm all for that. The experiential is just as important, maybe even more so important, because you have all of this phenomena going on. And I'm not just talking high-strangeness phenomena. I'm talking about phenomena of love, phenomena of experience, of joy, of sadness. If there's not a human being to experience these things, why the hell bother? What's the point? And that's why the best piece of detection equipment, the best piece of data, the best meter that can detect, measure, and experience any of this stuff is the human being, because it's all about the experience.
I find it fascinating to think about where we are today and how the craziest stuff we just take for granted, the craziest stuff, banking on your cell phone. It's just like, wait a minute, stop right there. That's the most basic of basic, right? Ordering off of Amazon and getting something delivered the next day.
Yeah.
The idea behind that, where you could buy anything on planet Earth, right?
Oh, yeah.
And have it delivered to your house the next day, and you do it off of your phone, where you're looking at videos of the product, right? So mundane to us.
Oh, it's
Try to describe that to somebody 100 years ago.
don't even not even 100 years ago.
I know.
If you told me when I was in college writing research papers that all of the knowledge of the world is here at my fingertips, anything, you know, especially using, you know, AI as a research assistant, you know, to find, you know, different data and research papers and all, I would have told you were out of your effing mind, because I had to go spend time and hours in the library looking at books, you know, and papers and things like that. If you had told me that the tricorder and the communicator from this original Star Trek series were going to be reality in my lifetime, I would have called you a fool. Who was the fool? So when you have people say that, oh, that phenomenon is not real because it doesn't fit within our scientific understanding of the universe, who's the fool?
That's right.
And who's the dreamer?
And I don't want to dismiss somebody's educational path.
I
don't want to dismiss their research. I don't. But you build a bubble around you, and that is your understanding, and you just stay right there. That's fine. I do your thing, but don't dismiss somebody else.
Yeah, don't dismiss their lived experience, because it has value even if you don't think it does. It has value to them. That has to be respected.
It's like somebody dismissing you, you know, as a physicist. We're going to dismiss your research because it doesn't fit us. Well, no, we don't dismiss you, and you can't dismiss everything else that's out there. I'm not a religious person. I'm not. I don't know if you are. I know we've talked about it, but But there are points in my life where right now I'm going, religion doesn't seem so far-fetched. It's like, it's really weird to me. I've gone through these phases with
Yeah, sure.
religion, and with what I know now about science, religion checks a lot of boxes in the world of science.
Well, yeah, I'll give you an example. It's I talk about it in one of the chapters of my latest book is the cube motif, the whole Meadow Project cube, right? You go back and you look, the cube is talked about, in ancient text. It's the Temple of Solomon, where the Ark of the Covenant was kept, was a cube-shaped room. It was a cube. It was where the sacred was. It was where the voice of God was inside of this cube. In Mecca, there's a thing called the Kaaba, which is a giant black cube, which is held in high esteem by Muslims. When conservative Jews pray, they wear small black leather cubes, and I can't remember the name of it, forgive me, on their arms and on their head that holds little tiny sacred scrolls.
What's the name of the cube in Mecca?
The Kaaba, Kabba.
Yeah.
The
Man,
Kaaba.
that's pretty cubish.
Cubish. And the weird thing is, you know what's in the corner of the Kaaba?
Yeah, a meteorite.
A meteorite, which was worshipped by the polytheistic people before Islam, ran off the polytheist. And there was something special about that meteorite that they stuck it in the corner of this ancient polytheistic pagan shrine before it was taken over by Islam. So there's otherworldly cube. There you go. You move forward in the John the Revelator, when he was imprisoned and wrote the book of Revelations. When the New Jerusalem came down, it was a perfect cube, 1,400 miles on each side.
Yeah, somebody just posted. Hold on. So check this out. I love this. Hold on. Somebody just said, actually, it is a stone with Prophet Abraham's footprint. And yes and no. And I'll say this.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay. That's what you want to say or what you want to know about it. That's fine. It's not tested. It's so worn out. It's been kissed and touched by millions and millions and millions and millions of people. So it's been reshaped and everything else. Is there the footprint of Muhammad in that? Is that what he said? Prophet Abraham's footprint. That would be pretty interesting if a meteorite had, a footprint embedded in it. But by all accounts, we can't test it.
Yeah, and that's what the word faith means. You have to take some things on faith. But moving forward with the cube motif, you go into alchemy, and the alchemist had something called the prima materia, which was the prime material, which is the basic element of all matter, and the alchemist represented it as a black cube. That was how they symbolized it, as a black cube. So, and then you go and you look at the famous Carl Higdon case in Wyoming, where he was taken aboard a cube-shaped craft. And these cubes seem to be everywhere. Katie Page talks about, the boxes and cubes at the Colorado Ranch. Well, I got to go actually see the place where those cubes were there in Colorado. Skinwalker Ranch has had cubes. The Meadow has had cubes. So, now, what about Cuba? That has to be no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Remember the testimony in Congress? Then we got to take a break. The testimony at the last UFO hearing was about the cube out at Vandenberg.
Mm-hmm.
And it was red, by the way.
Yep.
And I found that when I asked Lawrence Krauss, I had Lawrence Krauss on the show last week, by the way, right? And Mr. Big Time, I love Lawrence. I really do. He's very bright mind. But when I asked him about that, you know what he said? They're lying.
Hmm.
They're making it up. I'm like, man, we're talking about the military under oath at Congress. They just want to write a book. Really? That's the closed-mindedness I'm talking about. You know, just no, it's a lie. Oh, you know, what are you going to do? Trey, stay right there. Let's take a break. Our guest tonight is Trey Hudson, the Meadow Project. That film is out. He's got a short doc, the Helm and the Lens, which we're going to talk about when we come back. Trey, stay right there. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forster and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Trey Hudson is with us. He's got 2 films out, the Meadow Project and a short documentary called The Helm and the Lens. And we're talking about all of that tonight and the high strangeness that he investigates. Trey, where can everybody check out the Meadow Project?
Yeah, the both books are out in Amazon right now, and just go in and in the search bar on Amazon, type in Trey Hudson or That Idiot Hudson, or something like that. Just Trey Hudson, that'll work. And it'll come up. The 2 books are The Meadow Project and Return to the Meadow. The really cool thing about the Meadow Project is it talks about our explorations into the meadow from about 2016, our very early stuff, up until about 2020, and then Return to the Meadow is from 2020 to roughly November of last year. And the really cool thing about the second book is, since then, I have brought a psychotherapist onto our team. My brother Shay, who is our psychotherapist, hypnotherapist, and we've done some hypnotic regression with some of our team members that have had some of the most bizarre high strangeness. And the stuff that came out of those hypnotic regression sessions was, depending on the optics, could be terrifying or could be enlightening, depending on how you looked at it. But so we had some pretty cool stuff with that. So both books are available on Amazon. And then the films, we just released those. I'm very proud of those. I worked with Merkel Films and Dark Holler Studios on those. I'm really proud of that project. You can go to merkelfilms.com, and there's a really cool bundle that has the Meadow Project, Lens, and Helm. And then something we're doing with this film is we're crowdsourcing some of the research. There's unedited footage of some of the expeditions that we did during our week of filming out there, and people can actually go and watch this unedited footage. And if there's something that we missed, that we did not experience or did not detect, let us know, because that way the viewer can be part of the experience and actually be part of the research team themselves.
We've got the link up in the chat for Merkel Films, and here we go. There it is. And this is just, it's right there. I'm scrolling through. Merkel's really cool. So everybody head over to Merkel Films, and self-explanatory from there out. I have to mention, you just breezed past this. You did my brother in quotes, air quotes. Explain, good sir.
Oh, well, that's your fault, Jimmy. That's not my fault. We have it's really strange is I work with my alma mater, University of West Georgia, that has a transpersonal and humanistic psychology department that does parapsychology and stuff like that. And I was speaking to a professor out there. I'd gone and done some lectures there on the Meadow Project, and I told him, I said, we're looking for a hypnotherapist, because there's some regression, work that I want done, with some of our team members, and we need to have somebody that we can reach out to. And he recommended a guy by the name of Shay Hudson, Shaye, who also happened to be a former Army intelligence guy. So you have Shay Hudson and Trey Hudson, both together in the Anomalous Studies and Observation Group. Well, Shay and his lovely wife, Christy, had a chance of meeting, I think met you at Contact in the Desert, I believe.
Maybe the first time. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known them for such a long time.
Yeah. And it was funny because I said, if you see Jimmy Church, and like, well, you mean the Jimmy Church? I said, yeah, just go up and tell him I said hi. It's okay, because I'm going to message him. Hey, if you see these two guys, they're friends of mine. And so Jimmy, took a look at Shay, and he's like, he kind of looks like Trey. They have this, they're brothers. And so
I just assumed, it was just the funniest thing. And he pulls me aside. He goes, "We're not brothers." And I was like, now you're messing with me, right? You're just messing with me, because you are, right? No, we're not. So it stuck.
Yeah.
It just stuck. It'll never go away. I love those two. Those two are the coolest of the cool.
They are.
And they're listening right now. And so that's it. Fanboy stuff is ending right now. Just the title, Helm and Lens, that allows your noggin right now
it's
to just go into imagination.
yeah. Let me
It is what it
backtrack.
is.
It is
Yeah.
what it is. Let me backtrack a little bit. We filmed the Meadow Project, and the cool thing about the Meadow Project, the film, the 90-minute feature film, is you will see the portal video. You will see the Bigfoot, cold Bigfoot thing we talked about. You will hear the people that actually experience this stuff being interviewed. The actual experiencers themselves, and then you'll get to be with Tony and Joel and Ward as they do their own investigation. So there's a lot of really cool stuff there in the Meadow Project. It's the first time that the actual portal video has been made public, very wide. So it's out there. And so, whenever you make a film, and you know this from, working with Guy and stuff, this stuff ends up on the cutting room floor. You can't cram everything into a 90-minute film. So one of the things that ended up on the cutting room floor was a God helmet session that we did with one of our team members named Sean. Now, Sean's a retired police officer, former Marine, pretty, nuts and bolts kind of guy. And the session that he did was just too cool to discount. It was too cool not to put somewhere. So I was discussing it with Ward Heine, the director, and there's a gentleman by the name of Stephen Leah, who was with Hidden Worlds Quantum Imagery. And some of your listeners may remember him from both the Skinwalker Ranch show, Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and also Mystery of Blind Frog Ranch. He has a process called quantum analysis, where he'll take still images and he is able to collapse the waveform using a patented technology and pull quantum data out of this still image. And he was the one that discovered the big keyhole-like anomaly under Blind Frog Ranch using this quantum analysis from imagery. And so Stephen volunteered to take a look at some of our data, not only with the Meadow Project in general, but with Sean's God helmet session specifically. Now, people that aren't familiar with the God helmet, was developed by Stanley Coren. I've got my notes right here. Stanley Coren and Michael Persinger at Laurentian University in Canada. And the theory behind it was they were studying people that have mystical experiences. And they would take the part of the brain that is responsible for your fight or flight, and also responsible for mystical religious type experiences, which happens to be your left amygdala, in your brain. And they would bombard the left amygdala with electromagnetic energy and have people inside of a Faraday cage sound booth. And people would talk about having the feelings of spiritual presence. Some beings were with them. They could feel them. They saw God. They had these experiences. Well, me just being the diabolical guy I am, I'm like, hey, maybe I can take some of our team members and I can bombard their amygdalas with electromagnetic, fields. So I purchased a God helmet and we rigged it up to where it's field deployable. I can actually take it into anywhere. It runs off of a battery pack, with a laptop and all of that. And thought, what if we take that technology and we do it at the Meadow? How cool would that be? And what
I do it.
Well, you do anything. You do anything for $1, Jimmy. You know that.
I tell you what, I'm in the middle of binging the TV series Fringe for like the third time. And these ideas, which are presented so well in Fringe, I think the brain is probably the most perfect invention that we know of in the entire universe. The human brain, it's incredible. And we know nothing. We know nothing about it.
And we think it's a 3-dimensional organ, and it's not. That's how you do remote viewing and telekinesis and all that stuff. And that is part of what this experiment was. So we took Sean during this filming in November, and we hooked him up to the God helmet. And the experiment that we ran was a 40 hertz signal that runs around the brain, and it creates something called an interhemispherical intrusion, i.e., you're making different parts of the brain cooperate with one another that usually don't work together. Your right brain and your left brain have very distinctive roles, as you go through life, and they don't talk to each other that often. But by having a rotating 40 hertz signal, now the brain is now becoming more holistic. It's the same theory as binaural beats that the Monroe Institute uses, with HemiSync. So we did 20 minutes of juicing up his brain with a 40 hertz signal. Then the program jumped over to just emitting the signal to his left amygdala. So the footage is, I want you to imagine, and this is in the documentary Helm and Lens, is he is in a tent or a canopy.
I'm watching it as you're describing it.
So he's sitting
I'm just letting you know I'm watching the Helm and the Lens right here.
And so he's sitting in a canopy, and his left side is where we're pumping the signal into. And on his right side, viewer left, is kind of an open wooded area. Now, the interesting thing is that open wooded area to his left is actually the trail to the meadow. That's actually, you walk past the canopy down to the meadow. So we filmed this, and we interviewed him on what did he experience. And he describes having visions of 4 beings around him. He felt like there were 4 beings around him, and he had these visions of these beings. And he had these visions of going down a long hallway, and at the end of the hallway was a black cube. And so, this is his experience. We did not tell Stephen Leah any of this. All we did is we sent him the footage of him sitting in the chair going through the God Helmet session. So Stephen never saw the interview. So Stephen uses his quantum analysis methodology, his protocol. And Ward Heine, the director, and I are with Stephen as he's going through this. And he goes, okay, you sent me this video of a guy having his brain waves measured. He goes, but for some reason, he goes, there's something weird going on with the left side of his skull. It's like something is entering the left side of his skull.
Sean looks very no nonsense.
Yeah, he's a very no nonsense. Like I said, retired as a cop, in Metro Atlanta.
He is who you want with you at a bar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's a no nonsense guy. But he is geared up.
Yeah.
Wow. This is pretty incredible.
So
it's shot, by the way, let me just say this, shot really well.
Oh, it's
very well shot.
Very, very good production value on it.
Yeah. This is it's starting to scare me. I'm starting to get a little nervous.
Oh, it gets weird because Stephen says, he goes, I don't know why this is. You're just measuring the guy's brain waves, but why does it look like there's energy entering the left side of his head? And it's like, Stephen, we were pumping electromagnetic energy into the left side of his head. And he goes, did this guy know y'all were doing that? And it's like, yes, he volunteered for it. And he goes, y'all, you shouldn't be doing that to this poor guy. And about that time, he confuses him and thinks his name is Kyle. So you'll hear him talk about Kyle the whole time, but it's actually Sean. And then he starts doing, pulling this data, collapsing the quantum field and pulling this data out right before our eyes. And he says, there's something going on with his head. He goes, there's a toroidal field right where his head is. And he says, there's like a black spot, right on his forehead. And I said, have you ever heard of something called the third eye? And he goes, no. I said, that is, people say that is a manifestation of the pineal gland, as it awakens. And he says, yeah, it's like this toroidal field is energy is, rotating around his head. And he goes, and the really odd thing is, he goes, when I look out to the left side of, screen left, to his right side, he goes, it's like there are these things pumping out of the right side of his head. and they're manifesting to the left of the canopy. And he says there are faces, and he calls them craniomyofascial signatures, which are basically heads. There are all these heads floating around, like demon heads.
Was he seeing those? I mean, I could pull up the audio. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
But here, hold on. I don't even know if everybody can hear this. Do you hear that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I can't play the audio. Sean is describing what he's seeing. Could he see the skulls, the faces?
No. Sean experienced the beings. But where it gets really weird is the faces were manifesting to the left of the screen, Sean's right, into the area that leads down to the meadow. And then Stephen goes, why am I seeing these faces in boxes or cubes? That doesn't make any sense. What do cubes have to do with this? And then we explained to him that the portal originally was in the form of a thermal cube, and that's how we detected it. And what is also weird is I sent some video to one of MUFON's photo analysts, Seth Feinstein, and he used some of the same technology, quantum technology, and he's like, why am I seeing a big box in this video you sent me that y'all were taking out at the meadow? And I said, well, Seth, that's where the cube was. And he goes, dude, I'm telling you, it's still there in a quantum state. It never left. It still exists. And as this quantum analysis is being done with more and more stuff in the meadow, and this is the disturbing thing, is these entities and these beings, we thought that it was a one-off when we dealt with them with the portal, and a one-off when we dealt with them with the Estes. It's not. They are around us at all times. Every single moment of every single day. Not only are we not alone, we're never alone. These things are always with us. And they choose when and where to interact with us.
Have you put the God helmet on?
Yeah.
And
nothing is nothing as phenomenal as that. We have two individuals that have had some pretty phenomenal experiences. One of them is very personal that I'm not going to share without permission of the person, but it changed their life. They were actually communicating. I'm not going to go into details. They actually were communicating with one of our dead team members after the God helmet session. And it was one of those things that they were not expecting it. They were literally leaving camp, going home. And here's this dead team member that they didn't even know. They didn't know the guy. And he's talking to them.
There's an attraction. You guys are sending off, how do I say this? You guys are sending off a beacon.
We're lighting a flare in a dark room.
You're lighting a flare. You got a frigging Hollywood world premiere spotlight show going on.
And that's,
you know what I mean? And when you brought up Bigfoot, okay, so it's the chicken or the egg. Why is Bigfoot there? Is Bigfoot there because of you? Is Bigfoot there because of the entities? Is Bigfoot there just to watch the show? Was he called in? Was Bigfoot there first? And there, you know what I mean? There's like this, but why is it because you guys are lighting off a rescue flare? Yeah.
But two ways of looking at that is the God helmet. What we have found is we can take a team member, we can run them through a God helmet session, and it boosts other people's experiences at the meadow, not just theirs, other people. It's like priming the pump for high strangeness for that expedition. So I think it's doing two things. I think, like you said, it's like lighting a flare on a dark night, like off the coast of San Diego. If you see, a military flare from an aircraft, you can see it for 30 or 40 miles, forever. So it's like that bright beacon in the dark. And I don't mean dark allegorically. I'm just using that as an example. And or by using the God helmet is it opens up that receiver. We talked about, receiving a signal on a ham radio frequency. It opens up that frequency band, that gated, limits on what you can perceive. And now the person that goes through that can perceive more. That it doesn't mean it's brand new. It means they're just now able to perceive something that's always been there. And that's the part that's really amazing, is that these things are always there. And when I started having, the quantum analysis done on some of our older work and some of our current work, it validated the last 9 years of our research. It absolutely coincides with what we've been saying and what we've been experiencing for the last 9 years. So,
I can't take my eyes off of this.
Yeah,
I can't take my eyes off of it. We put up the links, everybody, and let me back out of this for a second here. Oh, I can't.
Yeah. You can't take your eyes off. It's just so breathtaking.
Have you thought about? Probably not. You're such a straight shooter. Have you thought about the God helmet and the Meadow with DMT?
Yes.
And
absolutely.
There's a reason why
I know exactly why you're asking, because I actually, the professor that I work with at University of West Georgia just wrote a paper on ayahuasca and in consciousness. He just wrote a paper on it, and he and I have talked about this kind of stuff. Is absolutely psilocybin, DMT. I think would be very interesting to do. I think it would be very dangerous if not done properly.
It's got to be done properly.
And it's not an accident we have a psychotherapist on our staff, on the ASOG staff.
Sure.
I think it would have to be done very carefully, but I think that we are doing something very similar with the God helmet that DMT does, using the chemical, processes in the brain. And it basically opens up, what, Huxley called the doors of perception.
That's right. That's right.
And, which was a book about, expanding your awareness through the use of various substances. And I think it's breathtaking. And there's been so much study done on that people that go through these experiences, and I talked about it earlier when you asked me, how did I take it? And I found it very comforting. I found it very, very enlightening. I took great comfort in that, knowing that there's more out there. Other people could be terrified with it. That's why you have to be in the right state of mind. And this stuff is not for the faint of heart.
I was before I did DMT, I did it twice. Because of the research I'd done into it, it was a little, I'm not going to lie, I was a little scared. I was a little frightened. I did it for research purposes only. This wasn't some, e-ticket to Disneyland. That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to understand it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was nervous. It was so extraordinary and so profound. It's such a paradigm shift. First off, there was nothing scary about it at all. It was enlightening, but this is what it exposed me. This is why I tie it back into the Meadow. There is a bona fide real thing that we do not perceive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real world. It's just the same as the one we're visiting right now. You go and you see it, and your brain is processing it, and it's like, wait. And it has nothing to do with this reality. It's just another world, another universe, whatever you want, another dimension. And quite possibly, this is what you guys are experiencing at the Meadow.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what we're experiencing at the Meadow. Is I think we're reaching kind of the same conclusion using a little bit different means, but it's important that both using chemical, DMT, psilocybin, whatever, and electromagnetic stimulation of various parts of the brain, specifically the amygdala, is you're creating an awareness beyond our three dimensions, but it's the same phenomena, just using different methodology. I can, cure depression using an orbiclast and a lobotomy, or I can cure depression using medication. Same ends, different methods. One's, pretty brutal, one isn't. I'm not saying DMT or dot helmets, one's better than the other. They're just, different paths to the same destination, I think.
I can only imagine doing it at the same time. What about Sean? Can I ask about Sean? How's he doing? Has his world changed?
Well, you asked, do you really want to hear this next story?
I do want to hear it. Watching him on the screen, I wasn't listening, I was just but watching him just, he's using his hands and describing the experience. You could tell it was very profound.
Oh, yeah, it was. So, after that was in November. So we went to another expedition. We kind of have a cross pollination, in this part of the country, of different research groups. So there was another research group that has a lot of the same members. I'm not in charge of this other group. Had gone to a location in another state, and we're looking at primarily Bigfoot. Right now, I've experienced Bigfooty kind of stuff there, and there's some names I'd mention and you would recognize them that have experienced Bigfooty stuff there. So we went there and went to an area that we had experienced stuff before. That was the area where I told you that another team member on another expedition had filmed a Sasquatch type creature with a lower body temperature, than the ambient surrounding. This was that place. So we went back to that place. We had multiple teams set up, and Sean and as we say here in the South, bless her heart, a brand new member of this team, this was her first experience. She and Sean were sitting in an area that they call Ambush Alley. And it's like a sunken road that goes through a hill. And they call it Ambush Alley because it'd be where you would militarily ambush somebody. And so they're sitting there, and we're all in radio communications. And Sean comes over the radio, and he says, we're starting to experience phenomena. Now, this is in June, just a few months ago, right after about 5 months or 6 months after his God helmet experience. He says we're experiencing phenomena around us. They're all around us. And then he says, yes, I can hear them moving. They're all around us. And then the next radio transmission is something akin to, I don't know what's happening. Where am I? Something's wrong. I don't know where I am. And then it's like, are you okay? Do we need to send a team to get to you? And he says, I don't know what's going on. Where am I?
This is Big Sean.
Yeah.
Wow. Sean is law. You can tell he's a serious guy.
So we
Wow.
started dispatching teams to him. Now, unfortunately, we were behind a gated area on public land. So we were on foot. So we were hoofing it to him as fast as we could. And the other team that got to him had a ER nurse, and she got there. They were both very upset, very agitated, and we started debriefing them. And during their debriefing, they said the environment changed. Like the trees that were in front of them in the normal environment were not there anymore. And this fog came in and like surrounded their little capsule of reality.
Here we go.
And it got so weird that they grabbed hands and they said, I don't know if I'm real anymore. I don't know who I am. And they were totally under I'm not going to say control, but they were at the mercy of whatever this phenomenon was, because there was absolutely nothing they could do. And it was so severe and so profound, they didn't even know if they were people anymore. And then they didn't know if they were going to come back. And they were visibly upset, psychologically
It's
upset.
just as scary as it can be, right?
And so we were able to get there. We were able to, kind of get everything calmed back down, hydrate. They wrote they went back to the camp, kind of talked a little bit about it. They wanted to be alone. They want people fawning over them. And they wrote their statements and submitted their statements, for records. And their world was different. So I have to wonder, since that was such a profound happening, such a profound experience away from the Meadow, if Sean was not touched by that God helmet session, if it did not open a door to where his reality is not necessarily always based firmly on terra firma.
That's right.
That he can wink in and out.
And how many times do we have to hear this story? Right? Once somebody has an experience, something changes where now, the mind is open and you perceive things that you've never noticed before.
Yeah.
That went past you before. I think there was something to that.
Yeah. Absolutely. A very mundane example is I bought a camper. I'm over 60 years old and I'm tired of sleeping on the ground. So, I use a camper now. You and I talked about that. And, before then I never really noticed campers, but now they're everywhere because I'm dialed into, recognizing campers. And I think that's the same phenomena is, this stuff probably goes on around us all the time. And we're just, we're not paying attention because it's, it's not on our, not on our radar screen. And number two, we don't have the ability, we don't have the psychological or psychic ability to recognize this stuff. And when you finally open up that eye, that other eye, you open up your vision, but beyond the infrared and ultraviolet, you open up that radio frequency beyond the gated, reality that we are all told ever since we're little kids. This is what is real, and anything outside of this doesn't exist. I think your world becomes very strange, and it becomes very wonderful too.
The ancient cultures have been documenting this, have been writing this down, have been referencing this on every front, whether it's spirituality or non-spiritual, or it's religious, or it's just experiences in general, the afterlife and spirits and other dimensions. And it's like one of the most documented things that we have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It feels like we're just waking up to this again. Something was shut off. Something was shut off in us. I don't know what it was, but now it's starting to come back.
I think during the Enlightenment period, we all culturally, especially in the West, were dropped and prostrated ourselves before the altar of science. All hail science. If it can't be explained by science, it doesn't exist. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm very happy for science. We have people living now because of open heart surgery and radiation treatments for cancer and, wonderful things. But, I think that we lost that magical part of ourselves. That's always been there. Do
you think kids are born with it and then we just program it out?
Yeah, I think so. There's a really cool science fiction story called Whimsy Were the Murrah Groves. I think that's the name of it. It's from a Lewis Carroll poem. And it talks about how aliens in this story come down and they give these kids these really weird non-Euclidean multidimensional toys to play with. And certain kids are build up this ability, to experience these multidimensional creatures, and they're not dumbed down by, education. They're not told that it's not real. they're not told it's all imaginary, that their awareness is expanded by these creatures. So it's kind of a cool story that kind of, goes along that premise that kids, talk about the imaginary playmate in the corner, or, they see their pawpaw in their bedrooms at night, things like that. Or the monsters, under the bed, the other unseemly part of, other worlds. And we're quick as adults, number one, to calm the kids down so they're not afraid, because we don't want our children to be afraid or, fearful. Is you're imagining that. That's not real. When in fact, if we really go back and we look at our cultural consciousness, if we look at our genetic memory, we know deep down, in a very primal state, that, yeah, it is real. It's all too real.
My Uncle Bill, who's been on Fade to Black as a guest, right? My Uncle Bill, helicopter pilot, 3 tours in Nam.
Hua.
Okay. All right. Now, my Uncle Bill, when I was a kid, I'm going to say I was 5. And if I was 5, he would have been 15. Okay. All right. Or 18, in that area. I'm 5, 6 years old. I think he's about 10 years older than me. I'm 62. He's probably 72 now. Anyway, so when we were kids, going up to my grandparents' house, he still lived there. And on the second floor, this is in Michigan, was a bedroom that me and my brother Mike slept in. All right. In this bedroom, next to the bed was the attic door. It's like 3 foot by 3 foot, right? Right next to the bed, right there. My friggin' Uncle Bill is in the next bedroom over. And this is what he does. And I'm 5. Son of a bitch. And I'm in bed, right? It's Christmas. I'm in bed, and he's like, okay, Jimmy, the door next to you, that's where the monster lives. Right. And I'm looking at the door, man. It's right next to the bed. And he tells me this whole story about the monster that lives in the attic behind the door. Now, is there a monster? Right? Well, yes, to me there was. Right? There's only it's like Schrodinger's cat until you open up the door.
Right.
Maybe there's a monster there. And I don't know. But this is part of my growing up. I never had I almost called you Shay. That's right. I almost called you Shay. I did.
Yeah, now Shay's laughing at that right now.
He's like, got him. I got him. Job done. Is that I never had anybody tell me that this stuff doesn't exist. I never did. No, I never had any teachers, anybody else tell me that UFOs aren't real, that monsters are when you and I were growing up, it was all about the Loch Ness Monster.
Oh, yeah.
The Bermuda Triangle.
In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, yeah.
I never had anybody tell me no. So I was able to just go and research and think about these things.
And that's kind of cool that you mentioned that, because same thing in my family. I'm actually looking at a copy of the book Gods of Aquarius. That was when I was a little kid, my dad bought that book, and I just thought it was absolutely the coolest book in the world, by Brad Steiger. And he and I would discuss this stuff, and probably before he passed away from COVID, the biggest fan of the Meadow Project was my father, because he was always very interested into this stuff. And so, I think, you and I had kind of the same upbringing. Is, we were never told no. I was the kid sitting on the back of the bus that didn't have a football magazine. I had a UFO magazine or a Bigfoot magazine. And, maybe that's why we're cut out of the same cloth to be interested and explore these mysteries. Maybe there's those of us that, don't find it strange that maybe the monster is behind the door, but maybe the monster really isn't a monster. Maybe it's just something we don't understand.
It's amazing how I'm going to use the word programming, but what we're taught as kids from our family and our parents stays as the foundation throughout your life.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, if it's a science background, if it's a religious upbringing, whatever, sports, right? Whatever it is,
Yeah.
you stay right there, and you may wonder about other things, but where you are is where you are, and that's okay. For me and for you, I never had any adult guidance and sensibility around me to steer me off of this path. And I know that I'm going to say this so I can offend everybody, and I'll just everybody at one crack. Science has taught me one thing, that there is something intelligent and spiritual behind it all. Science hasn't taken me off of it. Science wants to take me off of that, right? There's more atheists in science than anything else, but it's such a small minority. I'm more and more leaning towards there's something else. There's another intelligence. Call it what you want as far as a label goes, but there's too many miracles when it comes to us. There's too many.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's just, statistically, you look at, human beings being here and Earth being in the perfect Goldilocks spot and all of that. It's like, there seems to be, and you hear the term intelligent design. That's the secular, term out there. And you start hearing more and more scientists saying, we start looking at this from, different optics and science, and there seems to be some structure to it. It doesn't seem to be random or accidental. And, once again, I find comfort in that, that makes me happy, makes me content. That,
do you remember Time Life had that book series on the supernatural?
Yes.
They advertised it on TV. I had a neighbor. Now, this is going back. We're talking about 72.
Yeah.
In there. Yeah, that's going back. And I remember a neighbor of mine got the set of books.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was sitting there, and I was younger. It might have been, 72. So I was like 8 years old, and I pounded those books.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I couldn't believe it. And then I moved, and I had another neighbor that had the same set of books. My parents didn't, but
okay. Now you're going to make me go on eBay and try to find a set of those books and spend $2,000 to get a set now. Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy.
I wonder what they're called. Hold on. Somebody put up the name. What was that book series? Hold on. It was Time Life, right? Time Life.
I think so. Yeah.
Supernatural.
I think they had like one book on like UFOs and one book on telekinesis or psychic stuff.
28 volumes.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow. There it is right there. There's the edition Night Creatures. You can buy the whole set. Okay, 33 volumes, $400.
That's not too bad.
And 22 here, eBay, $159. There it is, Vampires, Ghost, and Mysterious Powers.
Yeah, I mean, for a big celebrity like you, that's chump change.
Man. The UFO phenomena, psychic voyages, spirit summonings. I'm looking at that the titles of the book. Visions and prophecies. I totally remember that. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Visions and prophecies. Oh, there it is. Phantom encounters, hauntings, mind over matter. Man, that is great. Yeah. You can get a couple $100. You can buy the set.
So you're going to have a set next time we talk?
I think so. I think so. No, it takes me right back to my childhood.
Yeah, sure.
And to have Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Or, Time Life. If you're a kid and you see this and it's Time Life, well, then it's real.
Oh, yeah. It's legitimate. Absolutely.
It's legit.
Well, it's like, the series In Search of It. It's got Leonard Nimoy from Star Trek on it. It's got to be good. And, I ended up buying the entire set on DVD of In Search of, and that's in the Time Life series, that I remember those too, Krillian photography. I remember reading about Krillian photography,
Me too. Me too. I did go, I got In Search of,
Yeah.
and I forgot how incredible that was. I
Oh,
mean,
it's
I
a
watched it when it was, in its first run on TV. And who was the other guy? Um, the detective guy. He'd wear the London fog with the
Oh,
hat.
that was Robert Stack,
Yeah, Robert Stack.
and
What was
that
that
was,
TV series?
Unsolved Mysteries.
Man, that was the best.
Yeah.
That was the best. Yeah, we have versions of it now. But back then, to me, it was just like 60 minutes.
Oh,
It
yeah.
wasn't any different. It was legit to me like that.
But you know what I think is the coolest thing for me personally is, I grew up watching, In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries and, all of these shows,
Sightings.
sightings, and I'm living it now. I'm that guy. And I get to share this with everybody. And that is so rewarding. That is so incredibly, just meaningful to me to not only do this, but to take other people on the journey as I explore some of these mysteries myself.
Isn't it a great feeling?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it's just, I tell people that 34 years in the government was my job. This is my vocation. This is what I love doing.
When people ask me about that, they have a perception of me, and I try to just like get it all corrected. Man, I'm just you. I'm no different. Just like we were talking about Time Life, sightings, unsolved mysteries, right? In Search of, Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Eric Von Degen.
coast
Yeah.
to coast, coast to coast. I listened to Coast to Coast before I was a host of Coast to Coast. I'm just like, and I was going to these conferences. I was doing all of this stuff. I was going to the MUFON meetings, and I'm just like who the people that listen to this show that are in the chat or are part of the live audience or that listen to it later. I was that person. I couldn't, the first search I did when I got the internet back in 93, 94, whenever that was.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. You're talking about news groups and all of that kind of stuff.
Before there, when I finally got whatever it was, like Mosaic or whatever that first search engine was,
web crawler.
And that was a big deal, right? To download a search engine. Ooh, right. The first, dude, UFO. That was my first search.
Yeah.
I know what other people's first searches are. That wasn't mine, right? Mine was UFO. I went straight there. And I felt, and it turned out to not be wrong. I felt that UFOs and the subjects of ET and abductions and everything else was what the internet was built for. I really, and I don't think I'm wrong. I don't think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are people, people that would have never met each other or never heard these experiences or heard other people's experience. There were people that were sitting there silently thinking they're going crazy because they have never talked to another person that had a like experience. There are people thinking that, I must have seen something, and I imagined it because, these things can't be real. I'm told they're not real. And then, through, originally news groups, I remember being on news groups back in AOL dial-up days, and then the World Wide Web and forums, people in the different forums. I remember talking to a friend of mine that was on the Coast to Coast forum, for years, that talked about a lot of this stuff. And, now, with the explosion of, podcast and YouTube channels and, internet radio and all, it's people are not so isolated now, and the people that were having tremendous anxiety because of their experiences, they find a kindred voice. They find a kind ear to talk to,
Yeah,
and
you're right though.
they find a community.
Back in the day, there was a group called Paranet.
Paranet, yeah.
Woo, man. And I just felt like I'm home.
Yeah, these are my people.
Yeah,
my
before
tribe.
then, the newsstand next to my house, which was huge, one of the biggest in the valley, on the corner of Van Nuys and Ventura Boulevard, the Sherman Oaks newsstand, ginormous. One UFO magazine, right?
Yeah.
Everything else there that you would want is a Borders Books, down the street. Okay, but this is that suddenly you had the internet now, right? Where if you wanted to try to research this, you had an alternate. You couldn't go to a newsstand. You couldn't go into a bookstore. You remember that paranormal shelf? It was like this wide.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Atlantis Rising and 40 Times and yeah.
Yep. Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
All the Roswell books. And so, which I bought at my local Borders, I bought every book. I still have them. Every book that they had on UFOs and the paranormal. I bought every one.
Yeah.
Every single thing. Is anything new that was released when Colonel Corso came out, right? The day after Roswell. That was a big deal to me. Oh, fresh meat. And I was able to go and buy it. But the internet is what opened it up for me.
Well, you talked about the internet, and there are pluses and minuses to the Amazon empire. I'm not going to go into that, but the cool thing is, guys like me, I can write a book, and I can get that book out to millions of people, where the big gatekeepers in the publishing world would have never given me a foot in the door. And now you have all of these voices, legitimate voices with an interesting story to tell, now have opportunities to share their information, their knowledge, and their experiences through the internet, be it printed word or ebooks or audiobooks, through this amazing mechanism called the internet. What a time to be alive.
I know. And it goes back to, and I just feel that I'm right, that the internet really helped this community out.
Yeah.
It was just built for this community. It was exactly for those reasons that you're just suggesting right there. All of those gatekeepers for television, for radio, for book publishing, magazines, all of that is removed.
Yep.
You don't have anybody there to tell you no.
Right.
Right? No, pass. We don't validate parking. Get out of here, right?
Yes.
And no, those days are over. And I want to thank you for everything, Trey, that you have done. Once again, we have got the links up for everything, and you can head straight over and check out the films and everything else that they offer. What else do they have? Let's see here. Hold on for a second.
And while you're looking, what I recommend to people is to get the full Meadow experience, is to do the books and the film, because the books, especially the first book, really goes into a lot of the experiences that they talk about in the films. And there's a lot more data, especially like in the hypnotic regression stuff that's in the second book that's touched on in the film. So, it's kind of a full meal deal. So if you don't get a little toy.
How do you spell the name of the company?
Oh, which company is that?
The film company.
Oh, it's Merkel Films.
Oh,
and
it's Merkel.
merkelfilms.com.
I was doing Burkle for some reason.
No, Merkel. MERKEL.
Yeah, so everything is right here. And so when you first jump in to their website, the Meadow Project is right on the top. And everything is right there. Merkel Films. Thank you so much, Bill, for there it is. Thank you for putting that up in the chat once again. Trey, I'll see you soon, my friend. Behave and be well, and just thank you for everything.
Thank you. Take care.
Trey Hudson, everybody. Trey's links are below, And over on our website and throughout social media, it's merkelfilms.com. Go and check it out. And of course, his books are right there on Amazon. And we do have, I've got to do one thing really quick so I can pop this up in real time. It is TreyHudsonResearch.com, and you head over there. Books are there and everything that he is doing, and you can reach out to Trey. All right. Thank you so much. What am I doing tomorrow night? Oh, tomorrow night, it's all Poltergeist all night long right here on Fade to Black. Why? Because it's Halloween. I'll see everybody tomorrow night. Until then, you know what I've got, and that's Go Beckley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Tappy.